What's going down, people? It's your boy Myer Krah back again with another episode of Here for the Dads podcast. Today, I got with me my boy Vijay. He's here with Man Up, and he's going to introduce himself, tell him all about himself and all about the organization. What's going on today, man? How you doing?
What up, Myra? Thanks so much for having me on this platform. I really appreciate it. My name is Vijay Chandra, Man Up, originally known as Man Up and Go. We just kind of like nix the go because it's implied, to be a man, you gotta not just sign up for something, show up, but truly man up. So we're stepping up in that capacity for fathers. I actually have two boys myself, but before I even go forward, my wife, my bride, we've been married over 10 and a half years. Met in church, loved kids even before we even had kids. It was just on our hearts. We wanted to basically pastor kids even before we had our own kids, pastoring in the home. So that's always been our heartbeat. And then we had some tough pregnancies, but we actually had two miracle babies, two boys. So I got my oldest 7. His name's Arlo Azariah. And then my youngest is 4.5 years old. His name is Atlas Agape. So
Oh
yeah.
man, I freaking love those names. Absolutely love them. I can't wait till my wife hears it because Atlas was one of the names I tried to fight for.
Okay.
Like I love every single one of those. I feel like those names are on our list at some point. You guys did a
Yeah.
great job. And why those names?
So we wanted something simple, but that has power behind it. Something in my mentality and the methods that I work with in the fatherhood space is words matter too. So when we talk about love, right, it's not just the confirmation or the action of that, but it's like the power behind that with the affirmation of it. So I wanted their names, which are going to be said throughout their lives, right?
Yeah.
People are going to know them by their name, right? So that's going to hold a lot of weight. And I want them to know that, for example, Arlo, it means standing on a hill, a fortified hill. Azariah is, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The Hebrew Azariah is helped by God. You have Atlas, like you think of Atlas, the man holding the world on his back, right?
Yep.
And then Agape is the best love you have, the unconditional love, it's the greatest love you could have. So why not have that in the next generation that's going, that precedes me? I mean, that supersedes me.
Absolutely. And
So
it's extremely
yeah,
important for them to know their names and know what it means too. That way
exactly.
they'll never forget. I still remember the first time my dad introduced me to my name and what my last name meant, and I felt powerful. I felt like there were people that I may not even have gotten a chance to meet that were in my history, my ancestors, that cared
Mm.
about me and that even though they didn't know me, that they were fighting for their names, and it just made me feel powerful, made me feel strong, and it reminded me what I stood for. So that's extremely powerful that you guys didn't just like throw a couple names together. Oh, this sounds cute, and just like kind of toss it on there. Not saying it's bad for anybody to do that because there's something about cute names, but I
Yeah.
care even more for the powerful names. But let's talk about the name Man Up and the title of it. I think today we hear man up, and sometimes it has a negative connotation towards it. I
Mm.
don't hear that negative connotation towards the phrase man up coming from men. I usually hear it coming either from the other side of the aisle or people just trying to bash what it is to be a man and what we've heard man up to be. But at times, I think we need man up. Can you tell me more about the organization and just the power behind the title?
Yeah, absolutely. So like as you even just like implied, man up, like you could say that from a negative connotation or a positive. So we're trying to take that negative toxic masculinity side of things and we're trying to reinforce positive biblical masculinity. So what does that look like? First off, in terms of what we believe that children benefit in every measurable way with the presence of a loving, committed father in the home. And I emphasize the presence, the loving, and the committed. I kind of already alluded to the loving part with the affirmation and confirmation side, but the presence is like, I could physically be here in this interview with you and not emotionally be there, not spiritually be there, not mentally be there. So that's the same way that we look at it in our homes. We could physically be there, like ships that passing through the night, but there's nothing there. There's no substance there. So we believe in that presence beyond just the physical. And then you think of the committed. Committed to me is consistency, especially in terms of what we do. We work in the dependency system. So my specific role at Man Up, other than our vision of seeing a father for every child, my specific role in the fatherhood program, which is pretty much where we put all our ammo in our arsenal, is to help reunify biodads with their children or child that's in the dependency system. So system of care, foster care system. These are all the AKAs for that. So fathers itself themselves are not looked at as people that are, or entities that are wanted, that feel like they belong, that feel like they're loved, valued, um, all the above, right? So we're trying to flip the script. We really want to get in this space, get in this, expand our territory, and just show these fathers like, hey, you actually do matter. You're not just a father first, because I think our identity is easy in terms of what we do a lot of times, especially as men. If I'm working, if I'm providing, I made it, right. But you're a man first. You're not a father or husband first. These are great hats to wear, but you're a man first. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's get down to the bones, the structure, and let's put meat around that. And that's what I do. That's where I come in terms of the engagement, fatherhood engagement side. It's discipling, it's supporting, it's mentoring, it's coming alongside them as opposed to just saying, hey, do this checklist, dot all the I's, cross the T's in the best possible way. Hey, my hands are clean.
Mm,
If you're back here, that means it's a bad thing. That means I didn't do my job. But
mm,
no, we're actually flipping the script and we're saying, hey, we're actually going to walk in the trenches with you. Because if you know, Meyer, like if you were trying to trailblaze something, you're going to have to walk through the mud, right?
absolutely.
So if we're walking through the mud right now, yeah, it might get dirty, right? But we're going to roll up our sleeves so that way the fathers behind us and the organizations behind us that maybe even we're partnered with can walk on that pavement. You know what I'm saying? So we really are, we're loving the one, like we're trying to reach so many fathers, but what if it's just that one? And we do that by simple ways too, not just navigating their case plan tasks, but by breaking bread with them. Like it says in Acts, we broke bread with glad and sincere hearts. So it's like, imagine if we took that mentality with every single thing we did. I did this with a glad and sincere heart. I disciplined my kids with glad and sincere hearts. I worked with glad and sincere hearts. This is just a simple recipe that I feel like when you have relationship building, relationship equity, relationship capital, um, we break bread and then our agendas are out the door at that moment. It's really just getting to know their story. Like, who are you? Who are you, Myer? How did you come to be where you're at? And then we just reinforce that by saying, hey, you're not defined by anything that you did in the past. We really bring it back to your identity and who you are, whose you are, and really just go from there and just speak life. Speak life. It's not just a motivational program. Like we really are just in it. And we're here for the long game. It's not like life is not a sprint, right? It's a marathon. So like we
Absolutely.
really believe that. We're trying to just show that and lead the way, but have others come along with us.
And I like that you said, I'm hearing a lot about like relationship and trusting and having
Yeah.
that like relationship equity when it comes to men and fathers. Like, why is that so important to make sure you value in order to start working alongside these guys?
I think the mentality from a man's standpoint already is like, hey, I'm an island by myself. Kind of like it's the world against me. I got to do everything for my family. I got to make sure I provide. I got to make sure without the acknowledgement, without the appreciation. Sometimes you get that, sometimes you don't, but it's like regardless of that, I got to put on this. I got to get out of my bed every single day and I got to just man up, right? I got to suck it up, whatever I'm going through, put my emotions aside, can't show a tear. Um, and I think men need to see that relationship equity that, hey, I'm not doing this alone.
Yeah.
Because if you want to go fast, then you definitely can go alone. But if you want to go far, you got to go together. You got to have that support system. It's got to be something where you can bounce ideas off of each other, strategize. Like, yo, I don't know how to control my kid with this. I don't know how to control my anger. I don't know how to be patient. I don't know how to like have self control in this way. You have fathers that have already done it, whether they're younger or older, that have gone through these, that have gone through these reps and everything. And it's like we would be fools to not take that advice. You
Mm,
know what I'm saying? So it's really just having key, intricate pillars in your life. We already want to see like a blueprint of them having, whether it be a pastor, whether it be a godfather, whether it be a grandfather, and that kind of alludes to our curriculum, which is patros. So patros
Patros.
means a highly esteemed one in Greek.
Okay.
Sitting at the feet of like somebody that has knowledge, that has wisdom. So we want to see these outside of our program. If they don't have that, then we can reinforce that in a healthy way. I can be that. A coach can be that. That's under our program, that wants to see fathers win, that wants to break this cycle of generational fatherlessness. They can then be that pillar in their life. And then in essence, we're trying to build that capital that, man, Myers, say that you're one of the dads in the programs. You eventually want to get married. Man, I want Vijay at my wedding. Like that's how deep we're getting. It's not just like a checklist, like that's it. you're good. All right, best of luck to you. No, it's like, when's the wedding? I'll be there. I'm here for you. And like now it's no longer just 6 month program, post 6 months reunification. We put that behind us and it's really just brotherhood. It's
Mm.
manhood, it's fatherhood. It's all encompassing, you know?
I like that. And for the first
Mhm.
time this past week, I've heard somebody split up these different relationships as far as like having a brotherhood, having a coach, a teacher, a mentor, and then separately having a father figure. And I know growing up for me, a lot of my coaches, my mentors, my teachers were what I saw to be father figures.
Mm.
And I don't know that I personally put pressure on them to be that for me, but in this video, this piece of content that I saw, he was essentially saying that it's almost not fair at times to get put the pressure of being a father figure for somebody without either not necessarily being asked, but at least expecting that of yourself so that you can, I guess, properly steward the relationship of being a coach or a teacher or a mentor. Is there a way that that is done wrong or the right way? Was I seeing that incorrectly? And how do you feel about just a short piece of information I gave you on what he said?
Yeah, I would say like fatherhood for me, can you rephrase that specifically, the question itself? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
want to make sure that I
absolutely.
want to make sure that I'm answering, I'm hearing it right, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, should every coach or mentor or teacher that's a male in a relationship with a child who may need a father figure in their life, should they feel or have to embody the pressure of being a father figure to that child?
I think it can be like an obligation to many, but I think you and I both know being husbands, being a father, obligation can only take you so far. It really has to be an intentionality to be a father because you look at role models too, like in sports. A lot of times they can say like, "Look, I'm not trying to be a role model. I'm just trying to get my money. I'm just trying to get
Yeah,
mines," you know?
that's true.
But I think if you're on a platform, like the way that I look at it, I've always been told about 3 years ago, I heard this and I'll never like forget it. If you're on a stage, you're there to perform. If you're on a platform, you're there to influence.
Mm,
So it's almost like if we're trying to flip the script, disrupt the system in a healthy way, we are the ones that are influencing. So all eyes are going to be on us. And the Bible says, like you got to live above reproach. The target's on your back. So it's going to be that much bigger, especially if you feel like you're called and your purpose to do this. I think you're already called if you're a father to be somebody great,
yeah.
because you need to set the next generation up. And it starts with you and or it ends with you too in the sense of breaking that cycle, right? So I think it is not just an obligation. You have to go beyond that. And it has to be something like this is a mantle that I have to wear proudly. Like I'm trying to be that change in my family, shoot, in my community, my neighborhood, my school, whatever it may be. And then they no longer have to look at somebody's like, oh man, he could have done this or he should have done that, or it's a would have, like oh yeah, I know that based off his character, like he's gonna come through. He's gonna actually make a way. And it's gonna be the right way. It's gonna be with a man of integrity, a man that is disciplined, a man that has other people in his corner that can position him and steward their relationship well so that he can carry that mantle proudly.
And the reason why I love organizations like Man Up is because there are men, people ready and like have already volunteered to be this for somebody. They don't have to necessarily go out and try to find or put pressure on people who are not necessarily ready or a little bit afraid to be that for them.
Right.
But there are people who are literally already trained to do so, have been mentored by other people and able to do so, and they're looking to help other people. And I think that's extremely helpful. Where were you when you first started working with the Man Up organization? Were you already a father? How long have you been doing it with them? Like, did you need some more molding and help yourself? Kind of, you tell me about how that was starting with them.
Man, so I think I kind of got to like go back a little bit to my
Please.
my my origin story, just to kind of answer this, and I'll bring it back. I'll try and be brief with this,
No,
but
man, you can go as long as you want. I got all day.
but to get to where I'm at right now, I have to go back. So I was born in India. At 8 months old, I was put in. Well, let me go back. So I was born in India. In Indian culture, and a lot of cultures in third world countries, or especially in Asia, if you are wed, out of wedlock, right? If you are pregnant out of wedlock, basically you can be outcasted for that. Some cultures you could even put to death. They wouldn't even think about it twice. In India, that's similar to that culture. I was born in '87. My mother at the time, they think the orphanage thinks that that was the case with that scenario, and she obviously didn't want to go back home, so she was raised up by somebody in the orphanage, and then she just left me at the orphanage. So I was there until I was 8 months old, and I was actually adopted by another Indian family from Tampa Bay. So fast forward, I already didn't know my adoptive or biological, you know, I'm sorry, I didn't know my biological or mother or father, right? So now I'm adopted into a family. I have a mother and a father, adopted mother and father. But fast forward to 2 years old, my father dips out. He walks out. He steps out on my mom. So from that point on, going forward, it was just me and my mom. Thank God, my mom was very stable. She didn't. She might have dated a little bit, but she never brought anybody in the home. When I mean anybody, like another man in the home, if she didn't feel like it was something that's going to be benefiting me, because she thought from the very beginning, like if I didn't have a father, then I'm going to do the best that I can to make sure that he's at least stable and it's consistent, and there's not all this run around in the home and disorder in the home, dysfunction in the home. So I thank my mom, man, thank God for her. Um, so the only time that my adoptive father had acknowledged me was when I was 18 years old, and he acknowledged that he didn't have to pay child support anymore.
Wow.
So you can imagine, like in my head, in my heart, in my spirit, the changes that I had to go through, wanting that affirmation, wanting that acceptance, wanting that acknowledgement. And then because I didn't get that in my father and my dad, knowing that he didn't want me, biological father and adoptive father now, man, that put me through, like my identity started going to the world, and to worldly things, to partying, to drinking, to sleeping around with different girls. Even in my eyes, I was the nice guy, right? Because yeah, I slept around with girls or I did whatever, but it was with my girlfriend. I didn't like sleep around with anyone. I didn't cheat on anybody. This was my morals and my values and my standards at the times. I'm still a good person. But for me, my faith is a big thing. So after going through like a cleansing, I would say like this is more like a detox. I feel like to get to where I'm at right now, from a grown boy to a grown man, was 25. And I realized that if I need to be a grown man, then I have to put away the childish things, right? And I have to cling on to the men that are in my life, because there were plenty of men in my life, but I just didn't cling to them. I didn't draw close to them. And these are the stable ones. These are the ones that have the business insight, that financial insight, that pedigree, of standards and morals, that did have a healthy relationship with their marriage, did have a healthy relationship with their kids. So then I started to gravitate towards that. And I think it really hit me because I was doing something in auto insurance, Geico auto insurance, straight out of college for 13 years and not feeling fulfilled, not feeling like I had a purpose. But God put into me, He breathed into me, like, your purpose in life is to connect people to God and connect people to each other. You're doing that already in Geico. You could do that in any job, because I believe any job is ministry, as long as you're doing it, the right way. But I felt like there was so much more. And I was already ministering and discipling and doing like small group settings with men and younger adults, young men adults, um, marriages as well, groups like that. So it's like already biblical counsel and discipleship happening. I was just waiting for God to truly open up a door, and that's where I found Man Up. It happened to be on Indeed.
Oh
I
wow.
just I don't want to do corporate life anymore. Like the job security, the 401k is all great and all, but I didn't wake up feeling fulfilled. Found Man Up. It was Man Up and Go back then. Um, and manupandgo.org. That's our website, by the way, but it's Man Up rebranded. So, but I found Man Up, and it was literally my story. Like, we're trying to fight for the fatherless. We're trying to find a father for every child. And for me, I found this organization already with two boys in the game already. Young boys at this moment. They're 7 and 4.5 now, but this was about a year and a half ago. And I knew right then and there, like, this is my calling. This is something I feel like I need to do. I need to, you know, place my last brick like Nehemiah with my job that I had in the corporate life, and really take a leap of faith and move into this sector of nonprofit world. Of, even though it's religious organization. We don't push religion. We push that relationship. That relationship where it's going to constantly come up in this. It's relationship, and that's what was really the determining factor of really just saying like, okay, do I put my identity and kind of leapfrog my purpose and calling to get to my assignment? I had to go back to what I was called for, what was the purpose for before getting to my assignment.
Mm.
Because if you look at like the lateral flow, identity, purpose, and calling, and then assignment, everybody tends to, and a lot of men, they tend to just go to assignment.
Yeah.
What happens with that? You get burned out. Your cup is just so low.
Mhm.
You can't pour out to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you have to truly find what your purpose and called for. I already knew that I wanted to be a dad one day. I already knew I wanted to be a husband one day, you know. But if you leapfrog that purpose and calling, then I don't feel like you're operating in the right context of what you're called to do in your life. Because assignments will always change. I hope I'm with Man Up forever, you know?
Yeah.
But you talk about insurance, you talk about what if you're a cashier, what if you're in claims? I don't know what, just fill it in, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't know what you're called and purpose to do, all that is just living. You're just like going through the motions at that point. You're
Absolutely.
going through another cycle. And I think that's what we're trying to end any cycles, like definitely generational fatherlessness, but any cycles in your life too. It's kind of like it goes through that filter. And so for me, that was a long story, but I think to add to that as well, we have to acknowledge that there's two truths. So Myer, when I say there's two truths, I'm talking about harsh truths and I'm talking about solid truth that you stand on, right? So the harsh truth you got to kind of sit in, right? When I say a harsh truth, it's hurt people hurt people. So hurt people. You can't expect to dry somebody else's tears in somebody else's eyes when you're still crying. You know, you can do that for so long, but it's not going to be profitable. So you have to acknowledge that hurt people hurt people. My adopted dad did that, right? People in my life did that. I did that to other people. Like we have to also be real with ourselves. Like we've done that to other people. But it's not so much of sitting there. A lot of people just tend to stay there, and a lot of men stay in that. That's why we see this cycle because their dad was drunkard. Their dad struggled with drugs. Their dad struggled with incompleteness, lack of acceptance themselves, which trickled into all these other vices. We don't stay there. We get up and then we stand on the truth that heal people heal people. So that's where we stand firm. That's where we're like, oh, we're no longer as a dad, as a man, as a husband, we're no longer just sitting on the bench because we're in the stadium, right?
Yeah.
But we're just sitting on the bench or we're just being fans. Like, let's get in the game. Let's get at bat. Let's get a home run. You know what I'm saying? Like, but now we have that built up. We have that foundation set. All the fundamentals are there, and the foundation is then growing. And then we just want to be that cornerstone. So I was able to find that passion and the purpose that I feel like I'm called to in Man Up. And now I'm able to operate in my true call, my true passion for the fatherless. And I didn't have a dad myself. Like you don't have to have a dad to feel complete. You just got to know whose you are to be complete first, your identity first. So it's a lot of identity too that we go through with that work, in these fathers' lives.
And I think that's where a lot of men, a lot of fathers lose themselves is in the identity part. Like they are searching for their identity and they feel lost because they're either placing it on somebody else, like, or they think that they are who somebody else tells them they are. There's a
Mm-hmm.
place to find who you are. And there's a difference between assignment and purpose. You got to find those things for yourself. And you know my good friend Valley, and he talks about purpose over position all the time. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times and he has a book called Purpose Over Position for those who are listening. You definitely should find that book. It's a great book. But a lot of times you think about where you are and you find identity in that. But as soon as you shift to another place, you feel yourself lost again.
Right.
Or let's say you don't even know who you are and you're not really sure what manhood is at all. And then next thing you know, you're a father. And now you're like, okay, my identity just shifted again. And yet and still I don't know my purpose. How can you truly fulfill the role of being a good husband, a good father, and you don't know how to be a good person, know what your identity is, and be a good man? And I can say I was there at one point and I watched God move in my life in a way that I didn't know at all he would do. I remember being in college and before and in high school, I was all over the place. I was like the football jock who loved girls, loved to be crazy. I drank,
Mm-hmm.
Love to go out and do all those things. And then there was a point in time in football right before my senior year. I had gotten into a little trouble on the football team, and my identity started to shift. And I was like, okay, I'm no longer like starting on the football team anymore. Like I'm still there, but I'm like physically benched. Like I know we talked about being benched in the I was physically benched, but now everything on the outside was shifting for me. I had just got out of a long relationship, and like I thought that would be forever. So I was like, who am I? What am I? And I remember laying in my bed one night and just praying to God, like, I need to stop all of these things that's not serving me. I don't really read my Bible. I don't truly have a relationship with God the way people talk about. Like, how
Right.
do I get there? And my first step that I believed was my first step, I pretty much said, like, God, just make me the man that you want me to be. Like, I don't even know what that looks like. I don't know what that sounds like for me, but make me the man that you want me to be. And from
Mm.
that point on, as I started to read a little bit more, and I'm not saying I was reading every day, but everything just seemed newer. Everything seemed different. I would read literally a page out of the book, and there would be words that would pop out to me that just seemed different. I would
Right.
look at girls differently. The way I spoke to people was different. And just to fast forward just a little bit, as he showed me what manhood looked like and who I was to him, I later found my wife, who was there the entire time, but I just didn't see her the right way, right?
Mm.
But I found my wife and I was like, okay, because I've learned to be a man, I can now not transition, but upgrade to being a husband. Because I don't
Mm.
think I can be the right husband that I'm supposed to be without first knowing what it is to be a man.
You
And the
leveled up,
same thing,
huh?
say it again. Yeah,
You
yeah.
leveled up. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I leveled up. And then the next phase 2 came, and although I might have felt unprepared or a little bit afraid to be a father because I knew what it was like to be a man and felt like I was at least there and I was searching and that I was strengthening myself in different ways, when it came time to be a father, I cared. Because I think that's the first step too. Is when you're afraid about something that you want to do or you get the upgrade or whatever, that fear a little bit, maybe there's a different word for it, but that fear a little bit, it just means that you care and that you want to do the right thing.
Right.
So I was gonna set that up as a question before, as you were talking about manhood and fatherhood. Can you even be a good father without first knowing what it's like to be a man? But I wanted to share that too as I was piecing it together with everything that you were saying.
Yeah. So I believe you could do anything that you put your heart and mind to. You absolutely can do that. You can be a good father. But there's something about operating out of what the priority is. So the same thing like with our families, right? I feel like God should be first, right? Then we have our spouse, we have our family, and then everything else, like work and all that. So there has to be some type of precedence that takes place. Whereas, so if I'm the perfect analogy I use, I'm assuming maybe your listeners, maybe you have been on a plane before. Um, when there's the emergency protocols that are going through on the tarmac right before you take off, they say in the event of cabin loss pressure, the oxygen mask will come down, right? So who did they say to put it on first?
Kids. Oh, yourself, never the kids.
Right. Most people
Or your
say
wife, whatever.
the other people, right, first, right? Because you're thinking, oh, I want to help them, right? I want to help them. But that's where it kind of goes back to like that empty cup. Like we're pouring out so much, but then we don't have anything to sustain us.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Our capacity might be bigger in one season or it might be lower in one season, but it doesn't mean that your cup has to be any lesser. Like you could still have a full cup. It just may not be 2 cups. It might just be 1 cup, right? But we need to make sure that we're having sustainability for ourselves first, so then we can pour out and it's overflowing at that point. It's flowing with abundance. So I believe you have to take it back to being a man first, because you would never be a father without being a man first. And of course, people become fathers before they become husbands, but
Right.
you're always going to be a man first. You're going to be that son first, whether somebody claims you or not. But we know on the other side of the cross, we have somebody that's already adopted us, in the kingdom terms. So for me, there's no excuse if you have the proper people in your corner that are pushing you towards the right direction and propelling you and compelling you as well. So, yeah, to answer your question, you can do that, but you're only going to get so far until you're like, man, I hit a rut or I hit a dead end. So we want to not just see that roadblock. We see it differently. We see it as a detour.
Mm. I like that. And we talking about those proper people. Like, where are those proper people? Who are the people that are around us? And how do we reach out to like get that proper either mentorship or cling to those relationships that can help us out?
Yeah, so one of the big things we try to do is church engagement, actually. So it's not so much that I can be in this father or this man's life and then we're good, right? We need to have community that he can surround himself because one, I'm not a savior, right? There's only one savior. But he needs to have the wherewithal to be like, okay, so VJ's in my corner or so and so is in my corner. But if I live here and he lives all the way out here, what do I really need to do? He needs to have the wherewithal and the mentality to be like, I need to find accountability. I need to find a support system that is like-minded. So if you think about like Paul, Timothy, and Barnabas, Paul is somebody that's like the esteemed one or that wise one that you're looking up to. He's like a mentor figure. Then you have somebody Timothy who you're pouring into, and then you have that Barnabas. So he kind of needs to find that Barnabas in his community, whether that be a church, whether that be like a recreational league, anything extracurricular. Find somebody that is one a good influence, and two is like minded. You know, not just faith wise, but whether it be sports, whether it be I don't know, whether it be playing cards. It could be anything that floats your boat. You know, for me, I'm a sports guy. I love football. I love basketball, soccer. You know, so I'm going to gravitate to men like that. But I also need to make sure that they're actually a right fit for me as well. Because if I get taken advantage of, or if I'm taking advantage of somebody else, it's probably not the best relationship. But and then that's where you find good residue and bad residue. You want to make sure that you're leaving good residue along with other people, and likewise.
Tell me about like how working with this organization has helped you in your own home and with your kids.
Oh man, I mean, it's practice what you preach. Like it's very easy to give advice and share stuff, but then when you're at home and you're faced with it
Oh
yourself, you're
yeah,
like, oh, now I got to actually like hold myself accountable. You know,
absolutely.
is words are powerful, right? So I find myself sometimes I get frustrated, like in my kids, man. So just be real, like my oldest, he's been struggling sometimes every now and then. It hasn't been anything recent, but he's been struggling like peeing in the bed, wet in the bed, right? And it's no diss to him, you know. It's just that's kids, right?
Yeah.
It's just kids. And for us, we're thinking of the immediate after. Oh, I got to clean this up, you know. Instead of just being like, hey, bud, this happens. It's all good. Daddy's got it taken care of. You know, it's just really just your whole tone just needs to change. Your whole demeanor just needs to change. And it's like it's what God does to us as well. Like, hey, you keep on doing this. You're a knucklehead. Whatever you're doing, VJ. And he's like, yo, I got you. I'm always gonna cover you. I'm always gonna wrap my arms around you. I'm always gonna like lead you the right way. And we'll get through this, right? So I have to then take that and just do that and breathe that into my household. My household, it should be a sanctuary. It should be a safe place, not just for my wife and I, but for my kids. They need to know that the things that they're being taught, it should be coming from us first. It should be coming from the family nucleus first, as opposed to anything outside of that. So, Man Up has only strengthened that and fortified it that much more to hold me accountable to my own family, to my boys. You know.
And you got a 7-year old. You said 4.5. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm right around there. I got a 6-year old who'll be turning 7 January 12th, and then I got a 4-year old and a set of twin boys who are 2, then another one on
Oh.
the way.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
definitely, you've been in all the places that I've been in. We're kind of in the same place right now, and I find myself in those same battles sometimes. Like with
Mm,
specifically for me is remembering that I have to come down and remember where he is so I can kind of meet him there. So
mm,
a lot of times I'll find him getting flustered. So we went out the other day and I was just been trying to teach him his a good running motion because he's
mm.
got like the avatar run with the hands behind him. And I was like, hey man, you can run a lot faster than that if you
Yeah.
just stop breaking your wrist. So we're outside on the hill. I probably should have stretched first. We're outside on the hill. I'm showing him some stuff, and he just wasn't getting it. And then whenever that happens, I was like, I'm always thinking about how I'm saying it and what I should say.
Mm,
I was probably could have figured out another way to teach him how to do it. But I was like,
mm.
he's always watching things on his phone. So I go to the phone, I slow it down, and I like record a video. I was like, he can watch this for himself in slow motion. And as he
Yeah.
sees it, he's trying to understand what it looks like, how to fix it. And I see it turning in his head. So now he's like, he's got his own motivation for it. But
Mm,
as he gets the motivation for it and tries to do it, he still fails and he
mm.
starts to get flustered.
Yeah.
And I'm getting flustered because I don't want him to get upset, which sounds kind of weird, but it's like I'm trying my best not to be upset with you. I'm trying to teach you whatever you said you wanted to learn. And now you're getting mad and you're crying. My first thought was, all right, let's just cut this out. Go in the house. Like, we don't need to be out here anyway. And
Right.
I was like, that's way too easy to do.
Mm.
That is way too easy to do. I don't think I'm supposed to be doing the easy thing. If it feels easy, I'm probably not going the right way. So I slowed it back down. I was like, okay, first step, try to make him stop crying, or at least get out what it is that's making him cry. And as I get that part out, the first response I had after listening was, "Daddy's not upset with you.
Mm.
It is okay to fail." I was like, I need to start there first. Because
Yeah.
if I go, hey, it's okay to get it wrong, you're always wrong first, and this is like, that's cool too. Like, I can start with those coaching techniques, but I had to remember, like, I'm his dad first, I'm not his coach.
Yeah.
And that he's feeling some type of frustration because he's not as familiar with failure as I've been. And I
Mm.
think there's a lot of men who don't get that portion of coaching or get that taught to them at any age before they step into the fatherhood role or become an adult. So when they face that failure, not at work, not on the football field, but in their home or in relationships, they get flustered and they
Right.
lash out, or they get flustered and they isolate. So I just wanted to bring that up because I thought about what you just said, and I've had so many different conversations with other people, and even myself when I find myself failing in a certain area in my own home and not knowing where to start, no matter if it's in my marriage or with my kids. My first thought is to either stop it, cancel it, isolate, quit, and I'm like, that's too easy. That's
Yeah.
not where I'm supposed to be going with this.
Yeah. When that flesh rises, man, it's very easy to go like to go left real quick. You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? And it's like if you think about it too, we grow up and we're still gonna have frustrations. We're still gonna have tantrums. They're just listed different because we're an adult at that point. You know what I'm saying? Like we're
Yeah.
gonna have these meltdowns, but we just handle it differently. Like, how do we course correct that? You know, so I think that not having that ever in my life, but then just innately wanting to be that dad and wanting to give something to my kids that I never had, it's a blessing to be able to do that in capacity of being a father and teach them that, and it starts from there and going forward. Now they're going to be able to say, hey, daddy taught me this. When they have their kids, Lord willing, you know, they're going to say, hey, daddy, you know, your grandpa taught you this, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
taught me this, and now I'm teaching you this. You know, I didn't have that. So but that's where the pillars come in. That's where these men around us too come in. So at the same token, I really like what you said too, because sometimes we could get frustrated because we're not necessarily a coach. Like maybe we don't coach them right. We're dad first, but we try and coach. We put that hat on, right? What I've noticed a lot of times, especially during the summer, both my boys were in swimming lessons. I try to teach them like, you know, just a normal, you know, what is it? Just freestyle
Yeah.
swim, right?
Freestyle, like the doggy
Yeah.
paddle
And
for
they
some.
get them under the doggy paddle and
Yeah.
stuff, you know, like which is great. Okay, but I'm trying to teach it the freestyle.
Yeah.
Let's get to the next level. As soon as we put them in a swim instructor class, they were doing it right away. So a lot of times I think we can't be so hard on ourselves as dad or as men because maybe we aren't the ones that are skilled in that area or experts in that area. And we're trying to like put so much pressure on ourselves to be those experts. And it's like, no, I'm actually, God gave me these giftings
Mm.
and I can do this really well. But maybe I'm not the best swim instructor. And I have to humble myself and be like, yo, you got this, you know? And they can then really excel in that area, not feeling any type of weight from dad, you know, like, or any type of burden, you know. So I think that was really, really big for me to kind of like understand and like, oh yeah, you can actually learn from other people too. That doesn't take away anything from me, you know.
Absolutely. And I had to remember that and those gifts in my own home when it comes to me and my wife and the way we parent and our
Oh yeah,
relationships with our
exactly.
kids. It's like she's stronger at some things than I am.
Oh yeah,
And it doesn't take away from me at all. I just have to remember that we're a team.
we
Like
got to lean into that.
we
Yeah.
can lean into that and use
Mhm.
that. And maybe I can also take note and learn and maybe
Yeah.
listen to her when she's trying to give me critiques on things that I may be doing that the kids aren't responding well to. Because
Yeah.
that happens too. Like you don't have two quarterbacks on the football team. It just doesn't work like that. You gotta have
Right.
somebody to catch the ball, you gotta have somebody to throw the ball. And maybe she's the quarterback sometimes, or maybe I'm the receiver and we go back and forth. But it took me some
Mhm.
time to think about that. It's not like an envious type thing. It's just like, man, like I do wish I could have done that, or like, hey babe, don't, I got it, I got it. And it's like, no, maybe I need to maybe I need to loosen the reins a little bit, give it to her, and that's vice versa, and not feel bad about it. Just be like,
Right.
okay, that's the gift that she has, that's what she does. And I also don't want to pressure the other person or my wife to do things that I do. Like I love to go outside with the kids. I'll bring them outside and we'll run and throw each other around and sweat and do all that type of stuff. That's the type of things that I like to do.
Right.
I can't just sit down and read a book and do activities like I don't have the attention span
Yep.
for it. And as soon as something drops or gets dirty, now I'm all frustrated. That's my wife's thing. But I can't
Yes.
pressure my wife to just like, hey, babe, just take them outside and do this and do that. That's not her thing. That's either not how she like gets filled, and that's not how her energy comes out. So we have to respect each other when it comes to that too. So
We reading the same book, Meyer.
yeah,
Man, that's just like us, bro. That is just like our family. Like I'm the one that takes them outside. She's the one that does like all the crafts and all this creative stuff inside, decorating nutcrackers during Christmas time. I'm like, man, I don't have the patience to do
I
that. Like,
don't.
let's go throw a ball. Let's go like learn how to ride a bike. Like I got you and everything. You know what I'm
I'll
saying?
rather
And
tackle Santa than to like go do some drawing and coloring. It always gets jacked up. That's the reason why I got like blue crayon all over my door right here.
yeah.
I tried to do it one day while my wife was gone, like doing all this coloring stuff, and then a couple crayons got on the floor. The
Hmm.
babies ended up in another room, and before you know it, it's like all over. It's just
Yeah, I had
yeah.
nutcracker. I had the paint from the nutcracker in my little one's hair. I'm
There
like,
you
all right,
go.
cool. All right.
There you go. If anything, because now we're talking about some of the hard stuff. What has been like the hardest thing that you can think of for you in your experience of being a father?
Man, the hardest thing, it kind of ties into a little bit what we were just talking about right now. Um, I feel like because I didn't even have siblings as well, along with not having a dad, I've always been a people pleaser. So I've always wanted to please and please, and that's how I got my gratification. That's how I got my validation, my acceptance that way. And of course, it wasn't always the right ways. So for me, it's like, man, I feel like I'm doing so good at raising my boys, not in a prideful way, but just like I feel like I'm doing good, right? Um, I'm proud of myself because I didn't have that, in my home. But then it's like, man, sometimes I get defeated. I think it's my own self that I kind of like got to fight with because I see the boys gravitating more to my wife one day or maybe this week. They're just like they're not give showing me so much love, and I'm like, man, I did this, this, and this for you, bro. But I think it's kind of like similar to the prodigal son. Like so many times it says in the Bible, it says you don't keep a record of your wrongs, right? But I think it's also too like the older brother, the one that stayed true to his father, he kept a record of all his good and it still wasn't good. You know what I'm saying? Like, Father, I did this, this, this. He just blew your inheritance, the inheritance that he took from you, and you're just accepting him back with open arms, giving him the best wardrobe, throwing
Mm,
a grand party. But I did all this. I stayed faithful to you. I was the one that did all right by you. And it's like it wasn't about that. It was like he was lost and now he's found, right? And I think that's what a lot of men kind of go through too, whether they did have a good relationship or not. It's just a struggle of men and the identity. It goes back to the identity. It's like they're lost in some way. And that could lead down paths of depression or anger, or they suppress their feelings and outbursts come out later. I have to make sure that I'm controlling my anger too, because that's something I struggled with in the past. So the way that I talk to my wife, that's another thing too. It may not even be anything that's like a word that is like an illicit word or anything like that, explicit word, but it could be something in terms of my tone in a condescending way that I'm responding to her. And then my kids are seeing that. My boys are seeing this, how I'm talking to mommy. And it's like sometimes she has to check me. She's like, don't talk like that while the boys are around.
mm,
And before I would get defensive, I'm like, but I'm not saying anything wrong. Like I'm just listen to what I'm saying. It's like there's moments that you can have a healthy argument in front of your kids, and there's moments where it's like, no, you just need to just button it up,
yeah.
take it, process it, maybe go on a walk or something, or go on a drive, and then revisit that without the kids there. So I'm working on that in terms of times where I get frustrated that I feel like maybe I'm not feeling loved as much, or maybe I'm not feeling like wanted enough. And I know these are all tricks and lies from the enemy.
Yeah.
But another thing, Meyer, like a lie only has power if you believe it.
Mm,
And I think we believe as men a lot of the lies that the world has kind of thrown out there. We filter it in any which way, and then it resonates with us because it's something we haven't dealt with. It's something we haven't healed from, right? We're still hurting from that. So it's really just it's a constant ongoing healing process for me with the anger, making sure that doesn't resurface, not just suppress, but really trying to eradicate that from my behavior, you know?
ah, man, that was so good. I've been every single one of those places, like all the way down to the arguments and just knowing. when is the right time and when is the right place, because you want to have some of those healthy like arguments and stuff in front of them. But if you're not in the right place to have those conversations, like maybe it is best that you button it up and do that
Yeah.
later, like up between you, because you're not going to be perfect all the time. And like I'm
Right.
one of those people, and I didn't notice this until a couple years ago, that I always have to have like the last word. So
Mm,
like, and my kids definitely hear that. So now I'm watching my children be a mirror to me. So as I'm saying something to my oldest, he'll always have like a but after it. So I'll say something. It's like he always has to have the last word, and I can't be mad at him because it's something he learned from me. So as I'm having that conversation with him about why that's not good, or how to have these conversations better, what I'm really doing is hoping that that mirror is shooting back at me, so I'm telling myself the same thing. So it's
right.
like it's great having kids too, because as you coach them through life and you're walking through this journey of everything that you believe that they should know and the things that they should believe, it's also a constant reminder of the things that you should believe for yourself. And it helps in your journey of being a man and being a father. I mean, I only got two more questions before we get out of here. I want to know, what does success look like in the Man Up organization? Like when it's all said and done, what does it truly look like? You might have already answered this, but I just wanted to ask that again.
Yeah, success. I think success really is, instead of seeing what the system of care is saying they need to see behavior modification, it really is a heart transplant. It's a heart transformation. Like you're not just, if you're looking at a tree. I speak a lot of metaphors, so
No, I
apologize.
love it. I'm an
But
English major, bro. This is what I like. I
yeah,
love it.
man, you look at like a tree, right? And you see that it's like it's withering away. Like it's almost like something poisonous has like grasped it. And you cut off the branches, and for a while it's like, oh, it's okay, but then the branches, they grow back, right? So we really are trying to get the root of the issues. This depression is coming from so and so, this anger is coming from so and so. It's almost like we have to get down to these men and look at their inner child. There's tons of books on like talking about inner child, but it's almost like we're trying to get to the inner child. I'm responding this way out of my anger or out of selfishness or whatever it may be. Maybe I'm lusting after this, or maybe I'm coveting this. It's because I've struggled with something, or I had maybe a traumatic moment at VJ at 7 years old, or Myer at 12 years old. This might have been a huge traumatic moment, a major traumatic moment in their life, or maybe been something where maybe they were just neglected in that moment. So I think success is really just getting to what is the heart of the issue. How can we extract that from your world and extract that from the trajectory of your life? Because you're going to go somewhere, right? We don't want to go backwards.
Yeah.
Well, let me rephrase that. We don't want to stay where we're at. Like I mentioned that, like we can sit in it. We don't want to stay there because we are going to go backwards sometimes. There's going to be setbacks, right? But let's fail forward. Let's try and fail forward. Like, hey, man, oh man, I didn't get it this time, but I know what I need to do now. If you look at it from an end zone standpoint, we're trying to get to a touchdown, right? We're not always going to have that 50-yard bomb, to the
Yeah.
end zone, that beautiful Randy Moss catch. We're going to have, maybe it's going to be a few yards, or maybe it's going to be a few feet. Maybe it's going to be just an inch here and there. But guess what? We're moving in the right direction. So when we see that behavior transformation, you take a 29-week domestic violence class, you take a 13-week parenting class. That's all a formality on paper to show behavior modification. But when you see a father change and he's no longer doing drugs, he's no longer talking the way that he used to talk, he's no longer showing up late to meetings or appointments or to fatherhood gatherings that we're having, he's actually speaking rather than just being an observer or a spectator. This is what we would define as success. Ultimately, on paper, it would be reunification, right? But it'll really be that person that's like, I had enough, and I'm setting my family up to win. I'm setting up my kids to win. I'm setting myself up to win. So I hope that kind of answered it.
It definitely answered. That was amazing. And as we keep this to a closing, man, this has been awesome. This has been everything that I thought it would be, plus more. And I'm gonna definitely go sit down and take a look at the Man Up organization for myself. But my last thing is, if you don't mind, just give some encouragement to the men and the fathers out there listening to this, and let them know how they can find you and the Man Up organization.
Yeah, no doubt, Myron. It's been a pleasure just being on this platform with you, man. Thanks for all that you're doing as well. This is amazing. Men need this, fathers need this. Shoot, even women can get some knowledge from this too as well, how they could be
Absolutely.
there for their man and what they can, kind of sit there and just be like, oh, okay, that was actually good. Yeah, this my man does that, but hey, I can do better too. um, but yeah, I mean, I would say first off, our organization, the website is manupandgo.org, manupandgo.org. You can see all the different program we have there. We even have youth mentoring coaching as well. So 13 to 17 year olds that are in the foster care system. We have aged out foster care men that are commonly neglected as well. Nobody wants to really adopt them. They're kind of overseen, overlooked. So we really are in that space as well for the fatherless there. And we even have wraparound services as well. It's called Adopt a Family Program. So bringing hot meals, diapers, wet wipes for these foster families that need help too as well. Sometimes they feel like they're kind of struggling. They're instead of thriving, they're kind of just surviving. I think we can all relate to that. But in that capacity, when you already have your own family, then you have other foster kids in your home, that can be overwhelming. So we have all these different programmings just for men to get involved. So if you're somebody that is on the receiving end of that, definitely we're here for you. If you're the one that actually needs to be poured into, if you're the one that needs to say, hey, I want to sign up for something, I want to volunteer for something, go on manupandgo.org, check us out. We have Tampa Bay is our main corporate area, but we also have cohorts in Kansas City as well and Springfield, Missouri. We are even international, like Ethiopia, Uganda, Dominican Republic. We actually started out internationally and became domestic.
Wow.
So it's kind of the opposite story with most people and organizations. But yeah, I mean, just get involved. It's not enough that you're saying, I have to do something. But when you get up and say, I get to do this today, it's a complete different, turnaround. It's a 180. It's a totally different outlook on life. And the fact that you get to do this, change people's lives on a daily basis, even with the L's. When I say L's, they're not losses, they're learns. Even with that, man, like you really, really can find a space and a context of helping the needs and really just being there for the orphans and the widows. That's literally what we're doing, what the Bible asks to do. So I would just encourage you to check our website out, continue pushing great messages like you're doing, Myer. Your organization, I don't know if it's a nonprofit or not, but your business, being professional, continue doing what you're doing because men need to see this. Men need to hear this. It's not so much about hearing, but it's the coupling of the both. And really, I just would encourage men to just listen to each other, not to respond, but to understand each other because a lot of the same things that we're going through, like we need to hear that. We need to really like just sit there and just be like, oh yeah, I know what you mean, or hey, I want to know I don't even know how to do this right now, but I'm here with you, and I'm gonna be in the fight with you. And it's really just loving and then leading them to reconciliation, to not just to reunification, but to what up, buddy?
Hey, what's up, man?
Come here real quick. Like I'm talking to my buddy Myer, my
Hey.
little guy.
Oh, you got cool hair, man.
You wave.
Hey.
This is my buddy Myer.
Hey,
We're
I'm
talking
Myer.
about
What's your
daddies.
name?
We're talking about daddies. Can you say your name?
He's like, I don't know about this.
This is Atlas. This is my Atlas Agape.
Oh man, what's up, Atlas?
Okay, well, I'll be right there. Okay, don't be scared. You got this.
Yeah.
And just showing up just like that. I mean, the fact that you even have a platform with a podcast, you're like, hey, I don't care about interruptions. That's what life is. Life has sucker punches. Life has interruptions. In this case, it's a great interruption. It's a
Yeah.
great distraction, and we just have to like change that mentality and our perspective, change our heart posture. And if you want to get involved, like it's so easy to get involved because you're just doing something that is for the better good. And I can't thank you enough, Myer, for just allowing me to be on this platform with you. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Keep going strong. Keep holding it down. Let's keep on continuing this discussion, the conversation.
Absolutely, man. We're gonna continue to fight for fatherhood, man.
Mm-hmm.
Vijay, this has been awesome. Guys, you heard it here first. Check out the Man Up organization. Here for the Dads. Out. Thank you for watching. You just listened to Here for the Dads podcast with Myer Krah. I am so grateful that you're here. But if you're new to this space, what I need you to do is slow down and subscribe, share, review, or rate. Whatever you can to help me out, because I'm on a journey to create a space for existing fathers and new fathers that's going to allow them to be a little bit more confident and a little bit more efficient at what they're doing. Thank you.